A sung through musical, most musicals that are called book musicals, you write them generally as a play first, and then you find moments in the scene where the people would sing. And it's usually where they're so overcome with emotion that just talking isn't enough. So then they bring it up to song. A sung through is a little bit more like an opera in which everything that even what would be dialogue is sung. So you may have a break here or there where a line is spoken, but for the most part, they're singing the whole time, such as Les Mis, Hamilton, Evita, Hadestown. Those are all sung through. So it's a lot of music, and it's a lot for the singers to learn. And since our show has 3 people, it is such a heavy lift for all 3 of them, which was also why we couldn't make use of a virtual platform, because Jan has to teach them the music in person. And we were still in a time when it was unsafe to meet in person. And you cannot send these singer actors a score such as ours and say, hey, just learn it on your own. It's just, that's not how it works. So the story of the Path to Catherine is Sophie is a teenager. Sophie will eventually become Catherine the Great, but her name is Sophie in our show because she's not yet become Catherine. She is German. She is a princess, but in Germany, there were many, 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 many princesses. She was not anything special as far as her rank, but her mother was very highly ranked, Joanna. But Joanna had married beneath her, so her rank had lowered. Joanna's very ambitious. And Joanna's brother had married the Empress Elizabeth's sister. So the Empress now needs an heir. She has chosen her dead sister's son to be her heir. His name is Peter. He's the grandson of Peter the Great. And he's obviously now, as a teenager, you can see that he is mentally unstable, like many people in that family who were mentally ill. And Elizabeth has realized he's not an heir. She needs him to have a son. So she needs to get him married. So she wants a family for herself since all of her family has died. So she invites Sophie and Joanna to come to Russia to be considered to be Peter's wife. There are many other princesses and other noble girls who could also be Peter's wife. It's not a given. So the entire show happens from January to May of 1744. And it's the 3 women's negotiating what they want and what they can get and what they can't get and how they're going about doing it. In the end, we all know that Sophie marries Peter, eventually overthrows him, and becomes Catherine the Great. Not in our show. And our show ends with Elizabeth making the decision that Sophie can marry Peter as long as Sophie agrees to send her mother home to never return. So Sophie has to choose, does she want her family or does she want to be close to power? We have an amazing cast. These women have to work so hard because it's 90 minutes of singing, and all 3 of them basically have about the same. They'll have about 30% of the show. And we have Elise Walters playing Sophie, the teenager who will become Catherine the Great. We have Jessica Reiner Harris, who is just so talented. She and I have worked together before on other shows of mine. And she's playing Joanna, Sophie's very ambitious, kind of narcissistic mother. And then we have Robin Roth playing Elizabeth, who is the Empress. And Robin brings to her this so interesting, because Elizabeth was she was not mentally ill like some of her family, but she was not completely mentally healthy. And Robin brings this really a deep understanding of the imbalance of Elizabeth's nature, and the three of them together. It's just it's intense, it's interesting, it's explosive. There's this, tension underneath everything, and that's what gives so much, why there's so much singing. That's why we decided to make it sung through, because of the intensity of the situation they're in is that intense. Our director is Joanna Syiek, and we got so lucky with her. She is the perfect person to bring to life this kind of the intersection of history, women, and rock. Our score is a pop rock score. There's a lot of I don't know, rawness. It's not raw, but it's not, they're not singing. When I would tell friends of mine that I was writing a show about Catherine the Great and it was set in 1744, they thought that we'd have like chamber music, very formal classical style. And we really wanted to go more in the direction of more like Spring Awakening, where you're contrasting, because the positions they were in needed a more explosive kind of music than a more formalized music. And that's something that Joanna understands really well. And for her to be able to tease out all of the nuances, why they're saying what they're saying when they're saying it, and how to bring across, because in a sung through, you don't have the dialogue to help people understand. So a lot of the physical movements that the actors are doing is helping to explain all the lyrics that are just coming at you. There's a lot of lyrics, and sung through shows, often you don't get them the first time. You have to listen a second and third time to get everything, because your brain can't process it that fast. And that when you're writing a sung through musical, and that you're going to depend on the director, choreographer person to add physicality. And that's something that she just does like in her sleep. It's astounding, the things she comes up with, and the creativity that she brings to help bring the work through. It's been really a fantastic collaboration. What I want the audience to get out of this production, I think, is I love history. It excites me for whatever reason. And I think that I'd like people to feel that history is accessible to them, and that these women were exactly like we are today. They were just in a different position. And I only wrote about these noble people because that's all the records we have. We don't have records of a Russian peasant in the 1740s whose family was trying to marry her off to another family because they owned a cow. It's the same story. And I think it speaks to how much those women are exactly like we are. And we live in a time where do you choose family? Do you choose to become a mother? Do you choose, I think maybe the generation before me and my generation are the first generations that didn't have to get married. We didn't have to. We didn't have to have a man. We could buy a house in our own name. We could have a credit card in our own name. We didn't need a husband to sign those things for us. And that's something that I think has been an upheaval in our society since birth control in the 60s and the feminist movement that's been happening since probably the suffrage movement. But these women, so the choice that our character who becomes Catherine, Sophie, that she has to choose what she wants. And I think that's what a lot of women, at least of my age and younger too, because you can't have everything. You know, the women before me, a generation before me, were sort of told they could have everything. So they chose these careers, had the careers, then they had to do their career, marry, take care of the home, and then suddenly they were too old to have children. And they were all like, well, I thought I could, you know, we're a lot of women who were born, I think, baby boomers, who ended up having that choice taken away. And what I think is interesting is that in this show, Sophie is choosing a life the way we choose lives now. Most people of that time didn't get to choose. She didn't have to marry Peter. She could have gone home to Germany. She would have married somebody else. But having the choice and not all the characters, I mean, both Joanna and Elizabeth kind of have to make peace with the life that's been forced on them. And our main character, Sophie, is the only one who chooses. So I think that's a long way of saying, I think that the audience that comes to see the show, I think everyone, I hope, will identify with all of the women or one woman in particular and feel a continuity of what the women before us did and what that enables us to do now. I think that is important because I think that people my age and younger take for granted, you know, that we have choices. And I think we wouldn't have them if the women who came before us didn't fight so hard. What am I looking for when I'm in the theater watching? I'm just praying to God that what I wrote comes across, that the director gets it, that the actors get it, because I've never written book before. So I don't know if did I get this in? Did I get that in? Does that make sense? And I have no idea. It makes sense in my head, but did I get it on the page? I don't know. And so for me, I'm at the rehearsals just breathing a sigh of relief every time I see that Joanna understands what I meant and that the actors get it. And there's this beautiful kind of, even though there's so many words in this play, there's this level of unspoken understanding that we all understand each other, that Joanna and me and Jan and Elise and Jessica and Robin, that somehow there's an unspoken understanding that's come through and that we're all kind of riding the same wave. And that is the coolest. That's just the coolest part of collaborating. It's so exciting for me to bring to life these incredible women from a time and a place that we don't know, and to bring them into our world now by using language that we understand, by using music that we're used to hearing, music that speaks to us, because we have all been hearing since we were babies the music of our time. It's in you, it's in your body and your heart, even if you don't know it, because that's how music works. You hear it in a grocery store, you hear it in a restaurant, you hear it in the car, you hear it on television. You hear music and it gets in your it's part of it's literally part of your physiological body. And when you hear music that is like that, rather than, for example, us playing some sort of classical chamber music, we hear less of that. So when you hear this kind of music that is more popular, that's more something that's been heard and you've internalized, it brings an identification so that you don't feel like these women are so far away from you and your experience. It makes it feel, I don't want to say like home to you, but it's familiar. And so you're able then to, if you had the idea that these women are so foreign and from hundreds of years ago, they have nothing in common with me, I think it changes that completely. I hope so. I don't have an answer for this, but at this time, Sophie is 14 and a half. And when I first was writing the show, I thought we would hire an actor who looked like 17 or 18, and we would just sort of gloss over her age, because I think it's uncomfortable for us today to think of a 14 and a half year old being married for the purpose of having a baby. There's something really creepy to us, I think, in this day and age. And I thought I could gloss over it, but Tamra Pica said, people know. All they have to do is Google it. If they don't know, we can't pretend. We know she's 14 and a half. And I think there's something that gives you this sense of urgency that you have to make decisions in your life. You have to make them when they come your way, and you don't get to choose when they come your way, and you're never ready when they come your way. It's like my friends, have always said, well, I'm going to have a baby here. I'm going to have a baby here. It's never a good time to have a baby. You've always got something else going on. But when you get pregnant, there's the baby. And that's it. That's what life handed you. And I think because she's so young, that adds to the stakes, and it makes you realize you can make those decisions too. They come at you when you least expect it. They overwhelm you with the responsibility you have, and knowing that the choice you make could affect the outcome of your entire life. We've all had moments like that. And you have to make them with the tools you've got and the knowledge you've got at that moment in life. And that's true for all the women in this show. And I think that's true for every woman who will see this show and every man who will see this show. You don't get to choose when you make those decisions. I think people should see The Path to Catherine, because Catherine the Great, at least in the Western world, I don't know how she's been written about in Russia and in the countries closer over there, but in European and all of the history that was written about her, she was portrayed so, I don't know the word, so slanderously and almost viciously. And she's been written about by all these European men who were jealous of her power. She became very, very powerful. And she didn't, after Peter, she didn't marry. And she had relationships. She was a serial monogamist. But at the time, there's been all this stuff written about her that's just gross, and just these ridiculous, stupid men writing ridiculous, stupid, awful stuff about her. And I wanted to tell a story that was actually true. And this story that I've told is true. I haven't made up stuff. I didn't just use the name Catherine the Great and then write whatever the heck I wanted. I really wrote what, from all the research I did, what I could tease out as the truth of what happened. And then I contoured things a little bit to make it work in the show. But I wanted her to have her chance, to have her say, and for her to be recognized for her humanity, for her leadership, for her compassion, for her, the way she valued education and the arts. And somebody has to do that. And I hope it's us. I hope it's me. I hope it's all my collaborators. And I hope that everybody who comes to the show, they don't need to write plays about it, but in our lives, we can be brave and be courageous. And even if we are maligned by people who don't understand, it is worthwhile to persist. I think that's why. I'm Patricia Zehentmayr. I'm the bookwriter and lyricist for The Path to Catherine, which is a new musical with 3 women. It tells the story of the teenage girl, Sophie, who will eventually become Catherine the Great, and the 3 women who shaped her. We have a fantastic cast of 3 super talented women. We're performing at the Brickhouse Theatre in North Hollywood, produced by Right Act Repertory. And we hope you will all come out and join us to see the story of how it took 3 strong women to make one great queen.
I knew of Patricia Zehentmayr. I've seen some of her shows. She and I had never met, but I knew of her. And I had just signed on, believe it or not, to writing another show. This was in like August of 2019. And she, within weeks, she happened to contact me, and I just signed on to start this other show. But I was so fascinated by the concept of it being a 3-woman show that was, and only 3 women, and just the storyline itself. She sent me an outline. She sent me a kind of a fleshed out first draft of a script, nothing written in lyric form yet. Because we hadn't even, we hadn't landed on the idea of turning it into a sung through musical. Anyway, I was just so fascinated by the story, and she'd done so much in-depth research already. So I was the one who came on board with the idea already fleshed out by Patricia. So I signed on, and then went on to be writing 2 shows simultaneously. And I thought I was going to die. It was like so much work between that and just doing my own life of like music directing and teaching. I teach at AMDA, et cetera, et cetera. But COVID hit, and COVID was for me kind of a hidden blessing because it slowed my life down. A lot of things obviously stopped, and I was able to get both of these shows written simultaneously and get them done by the end of the year of 2020. So, COVID was kind of a hidden blessing for me, because that's how I was able to finish. The story arc of Path to Catherine it's 3 different stories that are all happening between the 3 girls. There's 3 women in this show. There is young Sophie, who is an obscure German princess. She's only about 14, 15 years old, and living out in kind of Hicksville, somewhere in Germany, with her kind of lower ranked prince father, her father, and her mother, who's very dissatisfied that she married somebody lower in rank, much older than her, never really been in love with him, didn't even have, the honor of having a son first. She had this young girl, Sophie. Joanna, the mother, was always just disappointed with her own life, and definitely put that disappointment on Sophie all the time. But then over in Russia, there's the Empress Elizabeth, who found herself she ascended to the throne after her father, never got married, was childless, and was desperate to get an heir to the throne. in place so that her own life could be spared, because she was really in her life was in danger all the time, because she did not have an heir to the throne kind of set up. So she had a nephew whom she had never met before, but her sister lived in Germany as well. And anyway, she summoned the nephew, Peter, to come to Russia. And basically she just, announced he's going to be the heir to my throne. And then she realized what an awful kid he was. I mean, in so many ways, just poor judgment in every possible way. And she could see that he was going to be a terrible emperor. So it was very important that she find a good, solid wife for him that would hopefully help to steer, what would come after her. So she knew of Sophie, she knew of Joanna, because a man that she long ago loved and almost married until he died suddenly. This was like when she was 18. That was Joanna's brother. So she didn't know Joanna, but she knew of her. Anyway, and she knew that she had a daughter. So she summons young Sophie and her mother to Russia. And that's kind of how the show begins. And so we watch the machinations of these three women figuring out. Elizabeth's trying to figure out if Sophie's got the stock, to be a wife to her beleaguered nephew. Joanna, who, by the way, also agreed to spy on, this is like another side story, to spy on Elizabeth on behalf of the German King Frederick, who is really an arch enemy to Elizabeth. So she's got her own thing going on. And then young Sophie, who's just hoping that she's going to fall in love with this guy. And really at 14, that's all she wanted. She just wanted to fall in love, and she wanted him to love her, and everything would be this storybook life. And she realizes right away, this guy's awful. And so she's really struggling with that. So her journey is giving up. What she wants him to love her, and she's realizing that's probably never going to happen. And does she want to become the wife of someone who's never going to love her, just so that she'd be close to power and have more influence in her life, but give up on that very important dream she started off with? So for Sophie, it's giving up on a dream to track a brand new life in what she thought she would have. For Elizabeth, she's trying to create a potential new family that she's always wanted a family. She's starting to really have maternal feelings for Sophie. She doesn't know what to do with Joanna, who's just such a annoying stage mom kind of a woman. So Elizabeth's trying to figure that out, and then Joanna is just trying to have it all too. She's trying to get all the information she needs behind the scenes to give to the king, writing letters surreptitiously and sending them off, behind Elizabeth's back, giving him information about what's going on in the court, and just trying to keep things moving forward, that Sophie's going to be the chosen duchess for this young Peter. Anyway, it all goes fully awry at the end. And I don't know if I should tell you the ending, but it doesn't go well for Joanna. I'll just say that. So yeah, I love these many musicals that have music that goes against type of the actual show itself, like Spring Awakening. It's always been one of my favorite shows. I love, the uptight world of, turn of the 20th century, 1900-ish, uptight Germany, and these kids singing just all this rebellious rock and roll stuff. I love Jesus Christ Superstar and all the rock and roll influence in that sung through show. Obviously Hamilton. I studied that show so much too. So all of those shows, I would say those are the three shows stylistically that probably informed me and influenced me the most. I was, as I spoke before, that we just thought this show would be, because of it just being scene after scene of just these three women. It was a challenge to think, how do we keep it spicy with only having three women? And you see that all, and I begged many times to Patricia, let's have at least one guy in this cast, so he could play Peter and he could play King Frederick back in Germany, and the ambassador that Joanna is getting close with to get all the secrets from, and that was my idea. I wanted to, I just felt we needed more people on stage, and Patricia was like, "No, we have to keep this. We're going to keep this three women. We're going to tell this story with just these three girls." And we did it. I'm really proud that I'm very happy she didn't, give in to me. I feel like we told the story in an interesting way because of the fact that it's sung through. So everything, and they all have their own little musical themes that keep kind of reoccurring. So all the emotions can be just are expressed by the style of each song. Some of the songs are kind of rappy and really firing back and forth with really tense dialogue. Some are really these sweeping, big, beautiful melodic songs. Everything's a little different. We have this, what we call spy music, that we use throughout the show, when Joanna is just, writing her letters, to King Frederick, trying to pacify him, giving him information and all of that. We've got all these different styles of music that kind of feed into the emotion of that scene. So the sung through, pass through style of writing for this show really, I think it was really effective and makes this show unique because of that. Because the show is such a small theater, we made the decision to not use drums and bass, in which the score's written for that, but we've chose not to do it that way. We're producing this show with me on keys and a cellist and a guitar player. So it's kind of a little unusual threesome that we have, but it's kind of been the perfect little trio. The cello can play some low stuff and sort of function as the bass player sometimes. It's been fun to write for the cello, to give it where he can play a lot of rhythmic stuff, stuff, so you're still getting some rhythm, but coming out of the cello in an interesting way. But then of course I use him also to play all these beautiful sweeping melodies. And then the guitars I'm using him in every possible way too. Yeah, I mean, he plays, some big rock anthemic melodies, but then he's of course chugging and playing lots of rhythm too. He also plays on acoustic guitar. So it's kind of interesting. Right? We've got a lot of different textures for just the three of us. So that's been kind of neat too. And the next iteration that we do, hopefully we'll have even a bigger band, but it's been fun doing it with just these two guys plus me. Our three actors, I'm continually amazed by the heavy lift of this show and how they've succeeded beyond my imagination, of how they've internalized and turned these women into more than I even realized was there on the page. I mean, they really have found every layer that these ladies have to their characters. I guess I'll start with Robin Roth, who I've done a couple of other new works with. So I knew the vocal talent that she in both those shows that I did with her, she was a hilarious comedic actress as well. So I knew she had this funny bone in her, which I thought maybe could work for Joanna, because Joanna's just such a little conniving stage mom. And we were considering using her for Joanna at first. We didn't though, we casted her as Elizabeth. Robin is Elizabeth, because in her callback, she found a level of authority that that just, I mean, we could see she could find Elizabeth. Elizabeth's going to be, is going to be the character for her. Anyway, I've been so happy with what she has discovered and pulled out. And Elizabeth is kind of like secretly become kind of my favorite character. And I thought, I felt like she was maybe the least developed in the beginning of our writing of the show. Now she's just so complex. And I can't recommend the show enough to watch what Robin brings to it. So Robin's amazing. Okay. Then we have Jessica Reiner Harris, who is playing Joanna. And I honestly, her vocals are just flawless, this woman, and has been from the minute we started working with her. I can't believe the voice this woman's got. She is just, what a powerhouse, just amazing technique, what she sings like, and she is such a great actress and just makes you, I mean, she just brings she brings all the nasty qualities of Joanna full front, but also in the end when she's found out and she's on the ground singing her final ballad and realizing what she's done, like I'm telling you, she brings the house down when she sings that final song. It's gorgeous. She's amazing. So Jessica Reiner Harris. And then we have Elise Waters playing Sophie. And this was a hard role for us to cast. You're supposed to believe she's 14, 15 years old. For a second, we were going to try and cast somebody that young. But it's all these roles are so big. We just, we realized we couldn't count on, asking a high schooler to shoulder a role like this. Elise does such a great job in bringing this innocence, who in Sophie in the beginning, and you believe her at the end that she's ready to step into a role of being groomed into becoming an empress. She really makes you believe it. And she's also got this amazing instrument vocally. She is an opera singer. Opera was what she studied for many years, and more into musical theater these days. But she's so she brings like this pureness into her voice that really, really works and fits for Sophie. But she's, over these couple months of working, she's also really found some soul and like a little more, what we say, stank, in her voice, which has been really great and fun to see her grow in that way. Because she came to us as a little bit more of a legit singer, and but we've been working with her, and she's found all of her little R&B licks that she's singing in her, and she sounds great, just sounds great. So all three of these girls, as the music director, I'm telling you, I'm just wildly pleased with the performances that they're bringing to the show. Well, I'll start with Patricia, because we've been working on the show for 2.5 years, and it's been really the finest collaboration. I've had great collaborations over the years, but there's been something really special about what Patricia and I have, how we've done this, and how we've just stuck to this like a dog with a bone, and getting it done, getting, monthly dramaturgical notes from somebody that we worked with that helped us. We just stuck with it, so much. Now, not only did we finished writing the show around 2020 October, but then over the next year and a half has been my job to create demos of all these songs. And that's been a big learning curve. And then of course the music scores, like there's been a lot of work. Once the show's written, it's so much more work for the composer. It's like not done. Now all the heavy lifting lands on me after that. But Patricia's been so patient and supportive as we've been doing that. We casted the show last summer. with some other three awesome ladies that we had record the show. Patricia was part of that whole process. We just really have worked very, very well together over these last 2.5 years. Joanna Syiek came to us by recommendation, and of someone else that we highly recommend, Elise Dewsbury, who's the artistic director of New Musicals Inc. She said, we were looking for a director. She said, I know the perfect girl, because she and Elise had seen one of our other reading that we did of Path to Catherine. So she knew the kind of style of the show that it was. And she was so right. We reached out to Joanna, and from the get-go, she just seemed to understand what kind of show this was, what the kind of direction it needed. And I've never seen somebody work so hard. I mean, and how prepared she came, immediately created a vision for the show. Like right away, we just felt like we were in good hands. And that's just the most important thing to me, not just as the creator of the show, but then as the music director. I just need to feel like the director is like I can get behind her or him, her in our case, and follow them. Like I trust that they know where she's taking this show. And she right away gave us that kind of just security and confidence. And so, and delivered too. I mean, she just, every single minute of every rehearsal, she was a slave driver in such a good way, like just came with this, everything fully staged and worked so fast. I mean, there's 26 songs in this show. It's a lot. This show is it's in 90 minutes. It's like a action-packed show. Anyway, she came on board a little late, took us a little while to find her. And because we only had 3 weeks left when she finally came on board. I'd already taught the music to the girls. So anyway, she did magic. She's an amazing, amazing director. I want them to walk away, first of all, feeling like they've really got an interesting slice of history, to want to get to know more about Catherine the Great. I hope they'll want to go to the website and listen to some of the songs again. We hope to release our songs on an album soon. I guess I would love this, because the way we wrote this show, like there's all these musical themes that keep reoccurring and get used as underscoring and just come back in all these different sort of ways. I feel like it's the kind of score you should want to listen to again and again, and get all the nuggets. I feel it's one of those shows that the more you listen to it, the more you get it. Like Hamilton's kind of that way, right? We've all had that experience where every time you listen to Hamilton, there's more you get from it. You catch a little bit more from that song and that song because it's so rapid fire. There's some of that with our Catherine show. And I would hope that it would be satisfying enough for the audience that they would also want to return to it and like get even deeper into it and get even more, understanding why did we use that song to bring back and reprise here or to sing. There's reasons for every musical moment in the show. There's reasons for it. And I hope that people will want to engage in our show enough that they want to like discover all those little gems, because there's a lot of gems that I don't know that in one listening you get it all. I love that kind of discovery about musical theater, when a show is so deeply researched and written that you get more. It's it just gets more and more clear each time you experience the show. I feel like Catherine's that way too. As the pianist, I'm sort of the engine under the I'm the one. I'm conducting the band, and I'm really breathing with and experiencing the story with the girls. I really am. It's like I feel like I'm really truly breathing with them as they sing, as they perform each song, and feeling the songs along with them. So as I'm doing that, of course, I'm also got one ear towards the audience and just trying to understand, experience how they're, listening to for the audience's reaction. It's a nice intimate theater where we're playing, so I can see the audience. Not that I'm looking at them all that much, but I can, steal some looks and kind of see how it's playing. So, so there is that. I've the next iteration, I'll be ready to use somebody else at the piano and sit in the audience like Patricia's getting to do. There's just been so many little segue moments and it's, moving from song to song that I have felt in my, control freak way that I've had to still sit at the piano and make sure everything is really massaged out and worked through before I was ready to turn it over to another pianist and let him or her, lead the show. I just still needed to be at the piano for one more iteration. So that's what this has been. I really believe this show is special. And I really do believe this show has legs and is going, and I think you ought to come to see the beginning of a show that I believe is going to be a big show. And how awesome that would be to be able to say, I actually saw the world premiere of this show. We feel really strongly that it's got a place on off-Broadway, and that it's got a place it's easily producible with just 3 women. It's easy to produce. You don't need a lot of sets. The women are on stage for pretty much the whole time, so they're in one costume. It's not expensive to put this show on, but it is really a special experience. I think this 90 minutes takes you on such a journey, and I just don't think anybody should want to miss out while we're in this kind of fun early incubator stage. And it's a good show. It's really a ride. So I can't recommend it enough. I am Jan Roper, the composer and the music director for The Path to Catherine. This is a 90-minute sung through, fast moving rock musical that's playing at the Brickhouse Theatre in North Hollywood. And I just want to invite everybody to come out. It's a beautiful production. You will walk away just so intrigued with who young Catherine the Great was as a teenager and what were the incidences that set her on her path to eventually becoming Russia's empress. And I would love to see you there at the theater for Saturday nights at 7, Sundays at 3, and some Fridays, the 15th and the 22nd as well. Please come and see the show. It's challenging and it's beautiful and it's fun all at the same time. See you at the theater.
Actually, I heard about Path to Catherine when Right Act Rep reached out. I took a look kind of immediately at the website, at the music as it stood there, and I knew it was going to be kind of a perfect fit in terms of my experience, my interests, and what I think I could do with the piece. It's a 3-person, all female identifying cast, that's basically put together, told with, again, a creative team made up of 2 stellar women as well. I was really excited to be in a room with that kind of a show that basically underlines the importance of women and the importance of females pursuing their creative kind of prowess and their power on stage and off. I'm really excited to be back doing a show like that. Actually, one of my shows right before COVID and the pandemic was a 4-person rock musical called Lizzie. And I just loved that experience. And I was like, maybe someday I'll get to work on something like that again with a full female cast again. It was just such a interesting kind of breath of fresh air. I feel like it's rare to find that in the world of theater. And so I feel really honored to be doing another piece like that, where we get to again see that much or that many powerful women in a room together as well. I think the sound is super unique. There's so many earworms. It's always stuck in my head nowadays. I think it does a nice little mirroring of rock musical, a bit of even kind of hip hop and rap. I think it's a unique sound. I think it's a show that you'll kind of walk out humming something from it too. I think it's it's very accessible in that way. I think the songs have a nice blend of kind of modern newness to them, even though the show itself is set back in the 1700s. So it's not some, staid production. It's very, it feels very new and very of this moment too. The Path to Catherine is about the story before Catherine the Great. So we follow Sophie when she's a princess, her mother and the empress essentially of Russia at the time. We follow her story basically as a teenage girl up until essentially the moment before she becomes the Empress of Russia. She's, if you've watched The Great, you might know a bit about her. I think she's kind of come into the public kind of focus in the past year or so, or if you paid attention to other parts of European and kind of world history. There's been, I think, some fascination around her and her story just because she was such a trailblazer. And so it's really fascinating to go back and kind of track the people that made her, the mother that, influenced her, the woman that inspired her. So it's Empress Elizabeth and Joanna Syiek, her mother. And these three women together, how their stories again interweave and intermingle to create one of the most famous world leaders that we've had. I think the music of this score of Path to Catherine really does a great job of bringing us into the 21st century, just by nature of the fact that if we were to view this history, with a player style piano behind it and just kind of a single violin and something more indicative of the 1700s, people might tune out a little bit. But what the writers have done here is so brilliant in that they've brought it into a framework and a context that we all currently understand. It's in our modern language, our modern lexicon of modern music. And so it's, again, it's made more accessible by that. It's a joy to watch these actors sing it. It's a joy to watch the band dig into it and to see this story come to life every night. So I'm really hopeful that audiences enjoy it as much of it as I've been enjoying, putting together the show in this process. So we have a fantastic cast. We have Elise, who's playing our Sophie. She's fantastic. She comes from a opera background and has really kind of dove into the role itself, done a good amount of research, really bringing a lovely tenacity to Sophie, which I think you definitely need in the role. We have a very, very, very strong Joanna, who I think has been fantastic in the role. It's a hard role to walk in that it's not someone that you want to immediately identify with. She's kind of a difficult character. And I think that she's balancing her needs and her wants very well on stage to make her more accessible and make her more likable, even though her character arc is, as you'll see if you come to the show, is a bit more of a darker one. And then we have Robin, who's playing Elizabeth, the Empress, and she's fantastic as well. I think that every single person in the cast, it has wonderful interplay with each other. They are all fantastic singers and actresses. And it's, again, just so exciting to see this much female power in a room together. It's been great. It's been really fantastic to work with both our lyricist, who's our lyricist and our book writer, in this case, Patricia. She did so much background research on this story and on these women to really come up with a fantastic retelling of the story of how Sophie became Catherine. And there's so much knowledge and intrigue there. I think that I love how much she wants to tease out certain details and really tell this story in a new way. Again, nothing about it really feels old, which I love, even though the story itself is hundreds of years old. And that's also just completely married by Jan Roper's music. She has written a really, really compelling score. And again, it's always stuck in my head. I think it's a really fun one for the cast to sing. And it'll be a fun one for audiences to probably end up singing on their way home too. I hope audiences basically get a good amount out of this production. I hope they leave questioning, the kind of people they want to have in power, the kind of path they want to carve for themselves, the kind of legacy they want to carve for themselves. I think this piece really opens up that question of, what kind of life do you want to choose for yourself? And one thing I really personally love about, again, Catherine the Great's legacy is that she championed the arts. She championed, knowledge and supporting artists and supporting culture. And that's something that can we imagine what the world might look like if all of our world leaders treated it with that much importance and that much, gravity? And that's something that's kind of fun to imagine. We don't get to see that story, that whole side of things in the rest of the show, but it's nice to kind of ponder as we leave this show of what that might look like, the kind of the alternate version of the world that might exist if we'd had more leaders that support that. Typically, what I look forward to once I get to the place when the show's open and I just get to sit back and watch is to really just see the cast continue to soar and find new things together. I think my job is to get them as comfortable and prepared as possible. And then once it's open, it's really on them to tell the story. So my job is to give them fertile ground for questions, a lot of hopefully interesting staging, and then support them as creatives so they feel comfortable finding new things every night, so they feel comfortable exploring and continue to give the best performances they can give. So whenever I'm sitting in the dark, watching whether it's on opening night or if I, coming back to visit the show on a closing, I'm always rooting for the cast to tell the story in, the best way possible. And it's always just really fun to see. Viewers must attend Pat the Catherine because they'd be silly not to. Honestly, this show, I think, is in a really fantastic place. This is a developmental production of the show, but I think it's one that has legs. And I think this is something that people should see before it gets popular. So I'd say come and check it out before it becomes the hot new thing and you're left behind of the trend. So it's really fun, new. I think my favorite kind of musicals are the ones that kind of blend history and modern music. And so it has that nice interplay and overlap. And it's one that it's a fun 90-minute ride. It's quick, it's enjoyable. You can bring anyone, there's not something that's going to stop you from having a nice time with those that you bring, and hopefully you walk away having learned a little something as well. Some last things to kind of mention about Pat to Catherine. I think if you enjoy pop music, rap music, modern music of any kind, and you've enjoyed history at any point in your life, whether it's in a classroom or on a YouTube video or in a book, you're really, really going to love this production. And even if you don't love history, you're going to really enjoy the interplay of these three ladies acting their faces off and belting their faces off. It's a really fun score, fun show. And I think there's a lot there for people to take away. My name is Joanna Syiek. I'm the director of A Pat to Catherine, and please come see this incredible new musical. It is going to be, the link is going to be right here, most likely, pattocatherine.com. It's an incredible new work, and we hope to see you at the theater soon.